Hi, hello, everybody. This is Rob Fagan, adjunct professor of emergency management at Tulane University and Pikes Peak State College, producing a video about the disaster cycle for Wheaton College. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this important model. Most of us have seen it in a circle. Usually starts off with some impact of an incident, and then the disaster cycle goes immediately into response, then recovery, and those are the post-incident phases. Then you go back into the pre-incident phase, which is generally mitigation and preparedness. Now you'll see variations on this theme because some of these models, these circular models of the disaster cycle, will include protection, or they will include prevention, as sometimes as separate to preparedness and mitigation. Also, you'll see them mixed with the exercise and training cycle, two models superimposed on one another to discuss, how we get that done. And then sometimes you can see included in this disaster risk reduction or just risk reduction. So this really begets the point of what are the usages of models. Models show us simply and visually something that we're trying to understand and describe. So, in that regard, just like international relations theories models or economic models, we're trying to take something that's very infinitely complicated and difficult and simplify it for our understanding and explanation. So, in that regard, it works well. It does not include decision making, and it does not include budgeting or the financial aspects of all this. So it has limitations, but still, I'm a fan of it because I've had to use the model to discuss with senior leaders in organizations that are unfamiliar with emergency management or disaster response what we're trying to accomplish. Most people are enamored and focused on the response aspects of the disaster cycle. Rightly so, because that's the most dangerous point. But if you put all of your resources and efforts towards that, then you're not really managing or doing emergency management per se, because there's a recovery piece. Once all the activities of law enforcement, fire, search and rescue, and emergency medical stop, then there's recovery. And before the incident, there is mitigation and preparedness. Now, Hollywood doesn't do us any favors because no one's ever made a movie about mitigation and preparedness. It's all about response. That's what people are focused on. I understand that because it's the kind of quote unquote exciting part. That's also the incident stabilization part. That's why a lot of us get into this field. But once you're working in it for a while, you understand that really the pre-incident phases of mitigation and preparedness can be, in many regards, more important than response. Why do I say that? Not that you can mitigate your way out of every disaster, but if you do mitigation and preparedness very well, then you can limit the effects and maybe even eliminate the need for response and then therefore recovery. There's lots of research written about um, the financial aspects of this, and some people will tell you that for every $6 or $7 we spend in mitigation and preparedness, we can save, or for every dollar we spend in mitigation and preparedness, we can save 6 or 7 in response and recovery. So it makes a lot of financial sense from a planning aspect to be able to explain that to senior leaders and to elected officials about why, in their words, why are we spending money on things that are never going to happen? Well, we can use the disaster cycle and say, well, if we do this other part of it very well, then we are getting ahead of the disaster and we are helping the community be more resilient, and we're responding to the whole community when we do preparedness and mitigation aspects of this circle. If we only wait until the incident part, we're way behind in trying to get things done and trying to respond accordingly. So, is it perfect? No model is perfect, but does it do a good job in explaining, especially to non emergency management people, what we're trying to accomplish before an incident and then even after an incident, what comes next? Yeah, yes, it is. No model will ever do all the work for you, but I use the disaster cycle model with a certain amount of success, and I know that you can too. So hopefully this was helpful. And thank you very much, everybody, and have a crisis free rest of your week. Thank you.